I hesitate at his doorway, heart hammering against my ribs like it's trying to escape. His apartment is exactly as I imagined: clean lines, cool steel, purposeful minimalism. Much like him. Step inside, he says, not a request, but a gentle command that coils heat low in my stomach. The moment I cross the threshold, the door clicks shut. His hand finds the small of my back. Then lower dot, his other hand slides to my jaw and tilts my face to his. No words, just breath. Then his mouth is on mine, firm, consuming, angled with authority. My coat slides off my shoulders, pulling at my feet as he walks me backward. Every step is guided. Every pause dash measured dot by the time my spine meets the wall. I'm no longer thinking. I'm reacting. His hands trace under my shirt, along the edges of skin usually hidden, exploring without hesitation. My breathing falters as his lips find the line of my throat, then lower dot, no small talk. No warm-up. Just heat, control, and the sharp awareness that I've already given him permission. When his hands grip my thighs and lift me, I don't resist. I wrap myself around him completely, instinctively, and in that moment, pinned between cool concrete and the body of a man who never wastes a single movement, I realize this isn't just about desire. This is a lesson. If you enjoyed this glimpse into a story of boundaries, trust, and personal transformation, please like and subscribe to the channel for more narratives that explore complex emotional landscapes. Each story delves into the nuances of human connection and self-discovery, revealing how we grow through challenging relationships and experiences. 3 months earlier, I was struggling with a barbell at Elite Fitness when I first felt his gaze. Not the familiar evaluating stare I'd grown accustomed to deflecting, but something different, clinical, almost detached. Your form will cause injury. His voice materialized behind me, calm and matter dash of dash fact dot. I bristled, lowering the weights. I've been lifting for years, incorrectly. He moved beside me, his reflection appearing in the mirror. Tall, with close-cropped dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. May I? Before I could answer, his hands were on my shoulders, adjusting my posture with precise pressure. His touch was impersonal, yet somehow intimate, the touch of someone who understood bodies as machines. Engage your core, not your back. His fingers pressed briefly against my abdomen, causing me to instinctively tighten the muscles there. Better, now try. I lifted again, surprised by the difference. The weight felt balanced, controlled. Thank you, I managed, meeting his eyes in the mirror. Marcus Chun, he offered. No smile, just an introduction. Elise Harlow. We became Jim. Acquaintances after that. He would nod acknowledgement when our schedules aligned, occasionally offering corrections to my technique. I found myself looking for him, disappointed on days he wasn't there. 2 weeks later, he suggested protein shakes after our workouts. Our conversations were surprisingly easy, discussing form and nutrition at first, then gradually expanding to work, books, philosophies. He spoke with precision, never wasting words. I found myself drawn to his economy of expression, the way he listened completely when I spoke. Finance, he remarked one evening after I mentioned a difficult client meeting. The industry demands control, which I have, I replied, perhaps too quickly. His expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed slightly. Control is an illusion we maintain for comfort. True power comes from knowing when to surrender it. I don't surrender easily. Few worthwhile things come easily. He studied me for a moment. What if there was a different kind of training? One that exercises the mind's ability to relinquish control in a structured environment? My pulse quickened. What exactly are you suggesting? An arrangement, temporary, defined, educational. He slid a business card across the table, his name, a phone number, and an address in Millennium Tower. If you're interested in learning the strength that comes from conscious surrender, contact me. I should have been offended, should have walked away. Instead, I pocketed the card, feeling its edge against my fingers like a promise or a warning. 3 weeks and countless internal debates later, I texted him, "I'm interested in learning more." His response was immediate and characteristically concise: tomorrow, 8 p.m., the address on the card. That's how I found myself at his door, questioning every decision that led me there, yet unable to turn away. Water? Marcus handed me a crystal tumbler, the liquid catching light from the floor to ceiling windows overlooking the city. I accepted it, grateful for something to do with my hands. His apartment was a study in purposeful minimalism, charcoal gray. Furniture, hardwood floors, precisely arranged bookshelves. No clutter, no distractions. "You're wondering why you're here," he said, taking a seat in a leather armchair, gesturing for me to occupy the matching one opposite him. "I know why I'm here." My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "Tell me." I took a sip of water, buying time. "You offered to teach me something. Be specific, Elise." My name in his mouth sent an unexpected current through me. "You suggested I could learn from surrendering control." He nodded once. "What I offer is structure, discipline, an environment where you can safely experience release from the constant burden of control you maintain. And what do you get from this arrangement? The satisfaction of guiding someone worthy of guidance." His eyes held mine. "This isn't about sex, though there may be elements of sensuality. It's about trust and power exchange." "How does it work?" "We establish boundaries, yours and mine. We set a safe word that immediately stops whatever is happening. No questions asked." He leaned forward. "I never take. You give voluntarily. I push your limits, but never break them." "The safe word?" I asked, my mouth dry despite the water. "Avalanche. Say it once, everything pauses. Twice, everything stops. 3 times, I take you home immediately, and the arrangement ends." His expression remained serious. "Do you understand?" I nodded. "Verbal confirmation, please." "I understand." "Good." He sat back. "Questions?" Several tumbled through my mind, but one pushed forward. "Why me?" "You're disciplined, intelligent, perpetually in control." Something like appreciation flickered across his features. Those who have never known true control can never fully appreciate its surrender. The room seemed to shrink around us, air thickening with unspoken possibilities. "Our arrangement would be temporary," he continued. "Meeting here twice weekly for experiences designed to gradually increase your comfort with surrender. You may end it any time. I may end it if I believe it's no longer beneficial." My pulse drummed in my throat. "And tonight?" "Tonight is for questions and consideration. If you decide to proceed, you'll return tomorrow at 8 p.m. precisely." He handed me a small envelope. "Inside is my private number and basic parameters. Review them carefully." As I took it, our fingers brushed, a momentary contact that shouldn't have felt significant, yet somehow did. "Until tomorrow, then," I said, rising to leave. His smile was slight but genuine. "That's your first decision to make, Elise, not mine." At my apartment that night, I read his parameters 3 times. Nothing unreasonable. Nothing frightening. Just clearly defined boundaries that somehow made the unknown territory ahead feel safer to explore. I texted him at exactly 7 a.m. "I'll see you at 8 p.m. His response came seconds later. "The door will be open." The boardroom buzzed with voices, but I barely registered the quarterly projections displayed on the screen. My attention kept drifting to the evening ahead. Marcus's parameters were playing in my mind. Punctuality non-negotiable. Honesty mandatory. Resistance expected, but disobedience unacceptable. "Elise, your thoughts on the Henderson portfolio?" I snapped back to the present, seamlessly delivering my analysis while my mind remained split between worlds. This was my domain numbers, projections. Calculated risks yet today it felt hollow routine. Excellent presentation, my director commented after the meeting. You're at the top of your game lately. If only he knew how fractured my focus had been. I smiled politely and retreated to my office, closing the door to check my phone. No messages. From Marcus, not that I expected any. His instructions had been clear: 8 p.m., business casual attire. No perfume. My last relationship had ended 8 months ago. Peter's parting words still occasionally echoing. It's like trying to get close to a fortress. Before him was David, who'd called me emotionally unavailable, and Michael, who'd claimed I was too independent for partnership. Was that why I was drawn to Marcus's proposition? The chance to dismantle my own walls under controlled conditions? At 6 p.m., I left work and drove home, contemplating what to wear. Business casual offered considerable latitude. I selected charcoal, slacks and a silk blouse, and deep burgundy professional, but with a deliberate nod to femininity. No jewelry except small pearl earrings, subtle makeup, hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. I studied my reflection, recognizing the armor I wore. Daily polished, competent, untouchable. Tonight, someone would see beneath it by design. Rather than accident. My phone chimed at 7:30. Confirm you are on schedule. Marcus, predictably precise. I typed back, leaving now. Will arrive at 8. Good. The door will be unlocked. The drive to Millennium Tower took exactly the anticipated 22 minutes. I parked in the underground garage, checked the time, 7:55, and took the elevator to the 32nd floor. His hallway was silent, the plush carpet absorbing my footsteps as I approached apartment 3207. I raised my hand to knock, then remembered his message. The door will be unlocked, an implicit instruction to enter without announcement. I turned the handle, finding it yielded as promised. Close it behind you. His voice came from somewhere inside. Lock engaged. I did as instructed, hearing the soft click of the mechanism. You're precisely on time, Marcus said, appearing from the kitchen area. He wore dark slacks and a charcoal button-down, sleeves rolled to expose forearms corded with lean muscle. That's appreciated. You were clear about punctuality. I'm clear about everything, Elise. He gestured toward the living area. Take a seat, the same as yesterday. I moved to the leather armchair, noticing a glass of water already placed on the side table. He took his position opposite me, his posture relaxed but alert. Before we begin, I need verbal confirmation that you've read and accepted the parameters I provided. I've read and accept them, I said, my voice steady despite the anticipation coursing through me. And the safe word? Avalanche? He nodded, something like approval flickering in his expression. Good. Tonight is an introduction establishing baseline comfort with my direction. Nothing physically demanding. His eyes held mine. You may find it mentally challenging, however. I am prepared for that. A slight smile touched his lips. No, you're not. But your willingness to proceed anyway is noted. He leaned forward slightly. Throughout our arrangement, I will ask for your honesty. Not performances or projected confidence. Actual truth. I understand. Then let's begin with honesty now. Why are you here, Elise? The directness of the question caught me off guard. I reached for the rehearsed answer: curiosity, personal growth, but something in his unwavering gaze demanded more. I'm tired, I admitted, the truth surprising even me. Tired of maintaining perfect control, of never allowing vulnerability, of relationships failing because I can't. I trailed off. Can't surrender, he finished for me. I nodded. And you believe structured submission with a stranger is safer than organic vulnerability with someone who cares for you? It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway, yes. At least you're honest about it. He stood smoothly. Stand up, please. I complied, my pulse quickening. Tonight's lesson is simple, following direction without question. Are you ready to begin? I took a deep breath. Yes. Then we shall proceed, he said, his voice dropping to a tone that sent a shiver of anticipation through me. Marcus moved to a sideboard and returned with something. In his hand, a length of midnight blue silk, folded precisely. Do you know why? Sensory deprivation is effective. he asked, unfolding the fabric between his hands. It heightens the remaining senses, I answered, watching his fingers work with the material. Partly correct. It also removes distractions. He held up what was clearly a blindfold. When sight is removed, you can no longer anticipate based on visual cues. You must rely on other information: sound, touch, instinct. His eyes met mine. It creates immediate vulnerability. My throat tightened. You want to blindfold me? I'm asking permission to do so. You can decline. The choice hung between us. I could say no, maintain my comfortable control. Or I could take the first real step into this arrangement. Yes, I said finally. You have my permission. He nodded once, moving behind me. I'm going to place this over your eyes. If at any point you need it removed, you know what to say. The silk settled against my face, soft but disorienting. His fingers tied it securely at the back of my head, careful not to catch my hair. Darkness enveloped me, immediate and complete. Can you see anything? His voice came from directly behind me. No. Good. I'm going to step away now. Stay where you are. Instantly, my other senses heightened. I could hear him moving across the hardwood floor, the subtle sound of fabric as he moved. I fought the urge to reach for the blindfold, to restore my control of the situation. What are you experiencing? His voice now came from several feet away. Disorientation, I admitted. Heightened awareness of sound, and physically, I took inventory of my body. Tension in my shoulders, increased heart rate. That's normal, he said, his voice moving again. First exercise, I'm going to guide you across the room. You'll need to trust my directions completely. His hand touched my elbow, causing me to flinch slightly. Easy, he murmured. It's just me. We're going to walk forward, 10 steps. I hesitated, then began walking as his hand provided gentle pressure. 1, 2, 3, he counted softly. You're doing well. 4, 5, 6. With each step, my uncertainty grew. Without sight, I had no reference point, no way to prepare for obstacles. 7, 8. Careful, there's a slight turn here. His hand adjusted my direction. 9, 10. Stop. I halted, feeling slightly disoriented. Now, his voice came from directly in front of me. I'm going to place an object in your hands. I want you to identify it using only touch. Something smooth and cool pressed into my palms. I ran my fingers over it, recognizing the contours. A book, I said. Hardcover, relatively slim. Good. What else can you tell me about it? I explored. Further, finding embossed lettering on the spine. The cover has some kind of texture, leather maybe. And there's embossing on the spine. Excellent. He took the book back. Another. This continued with several objects, a crystal paperweight, a wooden box with intricate carving, a fountain pen. With each item, my confidence grew, my focus sharpening as I relied on touch alone. Final exercise, Marcus said, his voice now beside me. I'm going to lead you to a different part of the room. I want you to tell me where you think you are, based on sensory information other than sight. His hand returned to my elbow, guiding me in a different direction. We walked for what felt like 15 steps with several turns. Where are we now? He asked. I concentrated, noticing subtle changes in the air, a coolness, the faint sound of city noise. Near the windows, I ventured. I can feel a slight temperature change and hear traffic more clearly. Very good. His voice held appreciation. You're adaptable. Many people fight the process much harder. I'm still fighting it, I admitted. Just internally. Honesty, he acknowledged. That's valuable. I felt his presence move behind me, his hands at the blindfold's knot. I'm going to remove this now. Close your eyes first, then open them slowly. The light change can be jarring. The silk slid away. I kept my eyes closed for a moment, then gradually opened them, blinking as the apartment came back into focus. We stood indeed by the wall of windows, the city lights spread below us like stars. How do you feel? Marcus asked, coming around to face me. I considered the question seriously. Strangely present, more aware. What's the point? When we remove expected stimuli, we experience what remains more intensely. His eyes studied mine. You did well for a first exercise. The simple praise shouldn't have affected me, but warmth bloomed in my chest nonetheless. Next time will be more challenging, he continued. Are you willing to continue? In that moment, standing in the glow of city lights with a lingering sensation of vulnerability still humming through me, I realized I'd already crossed a threshold I couldn't return from. Yes, I said, I'm willing. His expression remained neutral, but something in his eyes intensified. Then we're finished for tonight, same time, 2 days from now. As I gathered my belongings to leave, I realized something unsettling. I was already counting the hours until I would return. 2 days later, I arrived at Marcus's door precisely at 8 p.m. This time, he opened it before I could reach for the handle. Prompt again, he noted, his eyes taking in my appearance. Navy dress, simple but elegant, hair loose around my shoulders. Come in. The apartment felt familiar now, though no less intimidating. I noticed subtle changes, music playing softly, something classical I couldn't name, and the lighting dimmer than before. Water, he offered. Please. As he moved to the kitchen, I remained standing, unsure of the protocol tonight. When he returned, he didn't direct me to sit. Tonight focuses on stillness, he said, handing me the water. Finish this, then we'll begin. I drank it slowly, watching him over the rim of the glass. He seemed particularly focused, his energy contained but palpable. Place the glass on the side table, he instructed when I finished. I complied, then turned. Back to him, waiting. Stand here. He indicated a spot in the center of the room on a dark gray rug. Arms at your sides, feet shoulder-width apart. I moved into position, feeling strangely formal. Perfect. He circled me slowly, his gaze analytical, rather than appreciative. Now, I want you to remain completely still. No shifting weight, no fidgeting, no scratching if something itches. Complete stillness. For how long? Until I say otherwise. He stopped in front of me. You'll find it more challenging than you expect. The mind rebels against enforced stillness. I squared my shoulders slightly. I can handle it. A hint of amusement touched his expression. We'll see. Begin now. At first, it seemed simple enough. I controlled my breathing, focusing on a point on the wall behind him. He continued to circle, occasionally adjusting my posture with light touches, straightening a shoulder, tilting my chin slightly. After what felt like 5 minutes, the first challenges began. A strand of hair tickled my cheek. My right calf developed a slight tremor. The urge to shift my weight became increasingly difficult to ignore. Your mind is looking for excuses to move, Marcus observed, now standing several feet away, watching. This is where discipline begins in resisting the mind's petty demands. Another minute passed. The tickle on my cheek became maddening. A drop of sweat formed between my shoulder blades, tracking slowly down my spine. Your breathing is changing, he noted. Control it. In through the nose, out through the mouth. I focused on my breath, using it as an anchor against the growing discomfort. My thighs began to burn slightly from the sustained position. Good, he said quietly. Very good. Most people have moved by now. His praise sent an unexpected surge of determination through me. I would not be most people. 10 minutes in, or what I estimated to be 10 minutes, my body was sending increasingly urgent signals to move. A genuine itch developed on my nose. My left foot began to tingle with the first hints of numbness. What are you feeling? Marcus asked, his voice closer now. Discomfort, I answered, keeping my gaze steady. Physical urges to move, frustration. And yet you remain still. He moved directly in front of me, his eyes meeting mine. That's power, Elise, not the absence of discomfort, but the choice to endure it. Somehow, his acknowledgement made the discomfort both more and less intense because his attention heightened my awareness of it, less because the struggle had been recognized. I'm going to stand very close to you, he said. You will continue to remain still, regardless of proximity. He stepped forward until barely 6 inches separated us. I could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell the subtle notes of his cologne sandalwood and something citrus. My pulse quickened traitorously. Your pupils are dilating, he observed quietly. Your breathing has changed again. What are you feeling now? The question felt dangerous. Awareness, I managed. Of your presence. Be specific, I swallowed. Physical awareness. Your height, your scent, your proximity. And does this proximity make stillness easier or more difficult? More difficult. Why? The word demanded honesty I wasn't prepared to give. I remained silent, struggling now, not just with physical stillness, but emotional containment. He didn't press, just continued to stand close, his gaze unwavering. After what felt like an eternity, he stepped back. You may relax now. My body nearly sagged with relief as I shifted my weight, rolling my shoulders to release the tension. The simple pleasure of movement after prolonged stillness was surprisingly intense. 16 minutes, he said. Impressive for a first attempt. I blinked. It felt longer. It always does. He gestured toward the sofa. Sit. We'll discuss what you experienced. I sank onto the cushions, grateful for the support. He remained standing, his posture still perfect despite the time that had passed. What did you learn? He asked. I considered the question seriously. That physical discomfort is often more psychological than we realize. That attention intensifies sensation. He nodded. And about yourself? That I'm more stubborn than I thought? I admitted with a small smile. Not stubbornness, discipline. He finally sat, though not beside me, in the armchair adjacent. You have natural aptitude for this, Elise. It's rare. The compliment shouldn't have pleased me as much as it did. What comes next? Next time, we add complexity. His expression remained serious. Each session builds on the previous one. The physical demands will increase, as will the psychological ones. A flutter of anticipation moved through me. I'm ready. No, he said, echoing his words from our first night. But your willingness to proceed anyway is notable. As I left his apartment that night, I realized something had shifted. The exercise, simple as it was, had awakened something in me. A recognition that submission could be its own form of strength. Have you eaten? Marcus asked as I entered his apartment for our third session. No, I admitted. Our meetings were scheduled during what would normally be dinner time. Good. Tonight we prepare food together. He gestured toward his kitchen, sleek and immaculate. Like everything else in his space, I followed, surprised by this deviation from the pattern we'd established. Cooking requires precision and presence, he explained, handing me an apron, much like our other exercises. He had ingredients already measured, vegetables precisely diced, herbs separated into small glass bowls, 2 fillets of salmon on parchment. Paper. You'll follow my instructions exactly, he said, moving behind me. No improvisation, no shortcuts. His hand settled lightly on my shoulders, positioning me at the cutting board. Dice the shallots. Fine and uniform. I picked up the knife, aware of his proximity as I began to cut. Slower, he murmured. Feel the resistance of the knife through the flesh. Be deliberate. I adjusted my pace, focusing on the sensation of the blade, the scent of the shallots. Better. He approved. Now the herbs. For 30 minutes, he guided me through preparation steps that should have taken half the time. Each movement became a meditation, heating oil to precisely the right temperature, seasoning with individual grains. Counted, stirring in specific patterns. Cooking is sensual, Marcus observed, standing close enough that I could feel his breath against my ear. It engages all senses simultaneously: sight, smell, sound, touch, eventually taste. When the meal was finally plated, simple yet perfect. In presentation, he poured wine, just an inch in each glass. Sit. We ate in silence at first, until he said, close your eyes. Take a bite. Tell me what you experience. I did as instructed, suddenly hyper-aware of texture, temperature, the layering. Of flavors. It single quotes alive, I said finally, opening my eyes. Every element distinct yet harmonious. Something like approval flickered across his face. That's mindfulness, Elise. Complete presence in a moment. Is that what these sessions are about? Mindfulness? Partly. They're about showing you alternatives to your perpetual control, ways of experiencing life more fully. He took a sip of wine, then asked unexpectedly, "Why finance?" The question startled me. I'm good with numbers. They make sense. Is that enough? I considered his question more deeply than I normally would. It gives me certainty in an uncertain world. Structure, like what I offer you here. Our eyes met. Across the table. Yes, I admitted. Like that. What were you like as a child? His question shifted the atmosphere again. Serious, responsible. My father left when I was 7. My mother worked 2 jobs. I learned to take care of myself, and others, I imagine. I nodded, surprised by his perception. My mother, when she was too tired, my younger sister, so control became survival. I suppose it did. He studied me, then offered military. Special forces, 8 years. I blinked at this volunteered information about himself. That explains a lot. Does it? Slight smile. What does it explain? Your precision, discipline, the way you move, economical, always aware. Observant, he acknowledged at our knees brushed under the small table. Neither of us moved away. In the military, he continued, I learned the paradox of control. Those who surrender to discipline find freedom within its structure. Is that what you're teaching me? I'm not teaching, Elise. I'm creating space for you to discover. As we finished eating, I realized this shared meal had shifted something. Between us, the clinical distance was closing, becoming something more complex. Next time, he said as I was leaving, we'll return to more challenging exercises. I nodded, strangely disappointed. But Elise? He caught my wrist gently as I passed. Tonight was also an exercise. In connection. His fingers lingered a moment longer than necessary before releasing me. The apartment was different when I arrived for our 4th session. The furniture had been rearranged, 2 chairs facing each other in the center of the room, a small table, between them holding a single candle and an hourglass. Tonight is about verbal surrender, Marcus said, gesturing to one of the chairs, the most difficult kind. I sat, watching as he turned the hourglass over and took the seat opposite me. For the next hour, we exchanged truths. I ask, you answer honestly. You ask, I answer honestly. His eyes reflected the candlelight. No deflection, no partial truths. What if I don't want to answer? Then say I choose not to answer, but understand that reciprocity governs this exercise. What you withhold, I may also withhold. The stakes were immediately clear. Who begins? I do. He leaned forward slightly. What are you most afraid of, Elise? The directness of the question took my breath away. My instinct was to offer something. Palatable heights, perhaps, or failure. But the candlelight and his unwavering gaze demanded more. Needing someone, I admitted finally. Becoming dependent and then being abandoned. He nodded once, accepting this without comment. Your turn. I considered carefully. Why did you leave the military? A mission went wrong. 3 civilians died because I followed orders instead of my judgment. His voice remained even, but something in his eyes darkened. I couldn't reconcile the discipline I valued with the consequences of blind obedience. The honesty stunned me. I expected a sanitized version. What do you want from these sessions that you haven't admitted to yourself? He asked. I swallowed hard. Connection without vulnerability, intimacy with built-in distance, contradictory desires. Yes. The questions continued, alternating between us. With each exchange, the space between our chairs seemed to shrink. I learned about his childhood in a strict household, his brief failed marriage to a woman who couldn't understand his need for order. He extracted admissions about my fear of emotional chaos, my tendency to sabotage relationships before they became too serious. Have you ever been in love? I asked as the last grains of sand fell through the hourglass. Marcus was silent. For a moment. Not in the way that transformed someone, not yet. The finality of his timer relieved and disappointed me simultaneously. Final question, he said. Mine, I braced myself. What do you want right now, in this moment? The truth rose to my lips before I could filter it, for you to touch me. The confession hung in the air between us. His expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes, where I held out my hand, palm up the safest option while still answering honestly. He looked at it for a long moment, then slowly extended his own hand. His fingers slid across my palm, coming to rest with our hands pressed together. A simple touch, yet electric in its intentionality. "This is enough?" he asked quietly. "For now," I whispered. He held my gaze as our hands remained connected, neither of us moving to deepen the contact or break it. Something unspoken passed between us, an acknowledgement that boundaries were beginning to blur. After what felt like minutes, he gently withdrew his hand. Session complete. As I gathered my things to leave, he added, "Next time will be more physically demanding. Wear comfortable clothing." I nodded, still feeling the phantom impression of his palm against mine. "And Elise?" His voice stopped me at the door. "Thank you for your honesty tonight." I left wondering which of us had surrendered more. I arrived for our 5th session in yoga pants and a fitted tank top beneath a loose sweater, uncertain what physically demanding might entail. Marcus answered the door in similar attire track, pants and a fitted t-shirt that revealed the lean musculature usually hidden by his button-downs. "Tonight we explore nonverbal communication," he said, leading me to an open area where he'd placed a training mat on the floor. "Take off your shoes and outer layer." I removed my sweater and shoes, suddenly aware of how exposed I felt in just the tank top. "Stand facing me," he instructed, taking position on the mat, palms up. I mirrored his stance, raising my hands with palms upward. "I'm going to place my hands against yours," he explained. "This exercise is about pressure and response. I apply pressure, you resist slightly, then yield. A conversation without words." He brought his palms down to meet mine. The contact was warm, solid. "Feel the difference," he said, increasing pressure against my right hand while maintaining gentle contact with my left. "Respond to the stronger pressure with equal resistance." I pushed back against his right hand while keeping my left hand receptive. The dynamic created an immediate physical dialogue. "Good," he murmured. "Now follow my lead." What began as simple hand pressure evolved into a slow-motion dance of contact and response. He would press forward. I would yield and redirect. Our hands remained connected as we moved around the mat, creating patterns of advance and retreat, resistance and surrender. "The body speaks more honestly than words," Marcus said, his voice low as we continued the exercise. "Your instinct is to match force with force." He was right. When he increased pressure, my immediate response was to push back equally. "Try yielding instead," he suggested. "Redirect the energy rather than opposing it." I exhaled and allowed my resistance to soften. Immediately, the dynamic changed. Instead of opposition, our movements became fluid, complementary. "That's it," he approved. "Now close your eyes. Trust your tactile senses." With sight removed, my awareness of his movements intensified. I could feel subtle shifts in his balance telegraphed through our connected palms, anticipate his intentions through minute changes in pressure. "Communication requires attunement," he said, his voice closer now. "The willingness to receive before responding." The exercise continued, evolving from just palm contact to forearm presses, shoulder connections, carefully controlled movements that never quite crossed into inappropriate territory but created undeniable intimacy. "Final sequence," Marcus said. "After what might have been 20 minutes, I'll guide you." Complete surrender to direction. His hands moved to my shoulders, turning me gently. One hand pressed lightly between my shoulder blades, indicating I should step forward. I followed his guidance, allowing him to direct my movements through touch alone. A step here, a turn there, a pause when his hands stilled. The experience was strangely liberating. Without having to decide my next move, I could simply exist. In the moment, responsive to his lead. Finally, his hands settled on my shoulders from behind, gentle pressure indicating I should stop. "Open your eyes," he said quietly. I found myself facing the wall of windows, city lights spread below us. "What did you feel?" he asked, his hands still resting lightly on my shoulders. "Freedom," I admitted, "and not having to choose or control." That's the paradox, he said, his voice close to my ear. Structured surrender creates its own kind of liberty. His hand slid away, leaving cool air where their warmth had been. We're finished for tonight. As I gathered my things to leave, I realized we'd spent an hour in near constant physical contact, yet it had felt more like communication than touch, a dialogue conducted through pressure and response, advance and retreat. Same time next week? I asked at the door. He nodded, something unreadable in his expression. We're something similar. We'll continue this exploration. I left with a lingering sensation of his hands against mine, a physical memory that followed me home. I spotted Marcus immediately upon entering Elite Fitness the following Monday. He was at the free weights, his form perfect as always. Our eyes met briefly in the mirror, his expression neutral, yet somehow conveying recognition. Beyond casual acquaintance, we hadn't discussed how to behave if we encountered each other outside. Our arranged meetings. I hesitated, then headed to the treadmills on the opposite side of the gym. 20 minutes into my run, I felt a presence beside me. Marcus stepped onto the adjacent treadmill, setting it to a moderate pace. Elise, he acknowledged. With a slight nod. Marcus? I maintained my rhythm, unsure of the protocol in this public space. Good form, he commented after observing me for a moment. You've corrected your posture. I had a good teacher. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly, the closest thing to a smile I'd seen from him in public. We ran in companionable silence for several minutes before he said quietly, "Yellow." I glanced at him, confused. Your awareness exercise for today, he clarified, voice low enough that only I could hear. Notice everything yellow in your environment. Don't react visibly when you see something, just register it mentally. Without waiting for my response, he increased his pace and focused forward, effectively ending our interaction. The request was subtle, nothing that would seem strange to an observer, yet immediately established our dynamic in this public setting. I was to follow his instruction while appearing completely normal to others. Throughout my workout, I found myself cataloging yellow objects: a woman's sports bra, caution signs near the pool entrance, protein shake bottles, highlighted lines on the basketball court. Each observation became a secret act of obedience, a thread connecting me to Marcus despite our physical distance. As I moved to the weight section, I noticed him spotting another gym member, a muscular man struggling with his final bench press. Repetitions. Marcus's attention appeared entirely professional, yet I sensed his awareness of my presence. I selected dumbbells for shoulder presses, positioning myself where I could see him in my peripheral vision. As I began my set, another trainer approached me. Need some help with those? He was younger than Marcus, with a friendly smile and an eager demeanor. His name tag read James. I'm fine, thanks, I replied, continuing my reps. Your form's pretty. Good, but you could get more activation if you adjust your angle slightly, he demonstrated with his own arms. Mind if I show you? Before I could respond, I felt rather than saw Marcus approach. She's got it, James, he said, his tone professional, but carrying unmistakable authority. Miss Harlow is one of my clients. James's smile faltered slightly. Oh, sorry, didn't realize. He backed away, moving to assist someone else. Marcus stood beside me, close but not touching. 3 more reps, then increased the weight by 5 pounds. He instructed as if continuing an established training session. I completed the reps, acutely aware of his gaze. Good, he said. Now try these. He handed me slightly heavier weights, his fingers brushing mine during the exchange. Brief contact that nonetheless sent a current up my arm. He stayed beside me for the remainder of that exercise, offering occasional adjustments to my form, with clinical touches that carried unspoken meaning after our previous sessions. When I finished my workout an hour later, I found Marcus waiting near the exit, ostensibly reviewing something on his phone. Walk to your car? He offered as I approached, making it sound like casual courtesy rather than a deliberate continuation of our interaction. In the parking garage, shielded from other gym members, his demeanor shifted subtly. You did well, he said as we reached. My vehicle? With the weights or with your yellow exercise? Both. He studied me with that penetrating gaze I'd come to know from our private sessions. The point was to maintain our connection in an environment with different rules and expectations. To see if you could follow instruction without obvious indicators. Was I being tested? Everything is a test, Elise, or a lesson. He rested one hand on the roof of my car, not crowding me, but definitely establishing presence. James was unplanned, but informative. How so? Your reaction when I intervened. Relief, but also something else. His eyes narrowed slightly. Satisfaction. I couldn't deny it. Something possessive had flashed through me when Marcus had claimed me as his client. Tomorrow night, he said, changing subjects abruptly. Come 30 minutes earlier than usual. 7:30? Why the change? Does it matter? His voice carried a subtle challenge. I met his gaze steadily. No. Good. He stepped back, preparing to leave, then added, Tonight, before sleep, I want you to catalog every yellow object you notice today. Write them down in order of observation. Bring the list tomorrow. With that, he turned and walked toward his own vehicle, leaving me with an assignment that would keep our connection active even in separation. As I drove home, I realized our dynamic had expanded beyond the controlled environment of his apartment. It had become portable, adaptable, secret frequency running beneath ordinary interactions. The thought should have alarmed me. Instead, I found myself already mentally listing yellow objects, wanting to be thorough, wanting to please. I arrived at Marcus's apartment at 7:45, 15 minutes late by our adjusted schedule. The decision to defy his instruction had crystallized during the day, a sudden need to test boundaries, to reassert some measure of control. He opened the door immediately, as if he'd been waiting beside it. His expression revealed nothing as he stepped aside to let me enter. You're late, he stated, voice neutral. Traffic, I lied, removing my coat. His eyes met mine, seeing through the fabrication instantly. Dishonesty as well as tardiness. I lifted my chin slightly. I'm here now. Without the list I requested. He'd noticed immediately that I wasn't carrying anything beyond my purse. Another deliberate omission on my part. I forgot, I said. The falsehood transparent between us. Marcus studied me for a long moment, his gaze clinically assessing. Something's changed since yesterday. Nothing's changed. I just had a busy day. He didn't respond immediately, just continued that penetrating observation that made me feel increasingly transparent. Finally, he gestured toward the living area. Sit, I complied, choosing the sofa. Rather than my usual armchair, another small rebellion, he remained standing, creating a power differential I suddenly found irritating rather than compelling. What's really happening, Elise? The directness of the question caught me off guard. I'd expected punishment for my tardiness, not inquiry into its cause. Nothing is happening. I'm just not in the mood for exercises tonight. Then why come at all? The logical question hung between us. Why indeed? I could have canceled. Could have ended our arrangement entirely if that's what I wanted. I don't know, I admitted finally. He sat across from me, leaning forward with elbows on knees. I think you do. Something in his calm certainty ignited a flare of anger. You don't know everything about me. I never claimed to. His voice remained, level despite my rising emotion. But I know resistance when I see it. The question is what you're resisting and why now. Maybe I'm resisting you telling me what to do all the time. Controlling everything. Is that it? Or are you resisting your response to that control? His perception cut too close to truth. I stood abruptly. This was a mistake. I shouldn't have come. You're free to leave any time. He remained seated, unruffled by my sudden movement. The doors never locked from the inside. His calm in the face of my agitation only fueled my frustration. Do you even care if I go? Of course I care. But caring doesn't mean I'll stop you from making your own choices, even if they're bad ones. Who decides what's bad? You want to control back? Now you have it. He spread his hands. What will you do with it? The question landed like a challenge. What indeed? Walk out? Stay and comply? Neither option felt satisfying. I want ... I began, then faltered. What do you want, Elise? I want to not want this. The words burst from me with unexpected force. I want to not need what you're giving me, to not feel this pull. Understanding dawned in his expression. You're not resisting me. You're resisting your own surrender. It's dangerous, I said, voice dropping, becoming dependent on this. On you. Is that what you think is happening? Dependency? Isn't it? He shook his head slowly. What we're doing isn't about creating dependency. It's about choice. Conscious, informed choice to temporarily yield control in a defined context. It's affecting me outside our sessions. Of course it is. That's the point. He stood, approaching me with measured steps. These exercises aren't compartmentalized. Experiences. They're meant to integrate into your understanding of yourself. That's not what I agreed to. It's exactly what you agreed to. His voice remained gentle despite the firmness of his words. Growth doesn't stay neatly contained, Elise. We stood facing each other, the air charged between us. I need space, I said finally, to think. He nodded once, then take it. Just like that? Just like that. He stepped back, creating physical distance to match the emotional space I'd requested. Our arrangement has always been voluntary. It remains so. The ease of his acquiescence was somehow more unsettling than resistance would have been. I gathered my coat and purse, movements jerky with unresolved emotion. At the door, I paused. What if I don't come back? Then you will have made your choice. His expression was unreadable, thought Elise. Make it for the right reasons, not from fear. I left without responding, the door closing quietly behind me. In the elevator, I leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. The rebellion had been easy. Walking away was proving harder than I'd anticipated. In my car, I sat motionless, hands gripping the steering wheel. The independence I'd just reclaimed felt hollow, performative, a reflexive response to my own deepening involvement rather than a genuine desire for distance. I started the engine, driving away from Millennium Tower with no destination in mind, just the pressing need to put physical space between myself and Marcus while I sorted through the confusion he'd so accurately identified. Not resisting him, but my own surrender. The truth of it followed me into the night. 5 days passed without contact. I threw myself into work, staying late at the office, taking on additional client consultations. Colleagues commented on my intensity, mistaking it for ambition rather than avoidance. I avoided the gym, unwilling to risk an encounter with Marcus before I'd sorted through my conflicted feelings. Instead, I ran punishing routes through the city parks, pushing myself to exhaustion that never quite silenced my thoughts. On the 6th evening, a colleague asked me to dinner. Paul from the tax division, attractive, intelligent, uncomplicated. I accepted, welcoming the distraction. The restaurant was upscale, the conversation pleasant. Paul talked about his recent vacation to Belize, his plans to buy a condo. He asked appropriate questions about my work, complimented my insights. By any objective measure, it was a successful date, yet as he walked me to my car, his interest clear in the way, he stood slightly too close. I felt nothing, no anticipation, no electricity. When he leaned in to kiss me goodnight, I turned my head slightly, offering my cheek instead. I'm sorry, I said, seeing his confusion. I'm not in a good place for this right now. No problem, he replied with practiced ease. Maybe another time. I drove home knowing there wouldn't be another time, not with Paul. Not with anyone who could create the intensity I'd experienced in Marcus's carefully structured exercises. In my apartment, I poured a glass of wine and forced myself to confront the question I'd been avoiding. What did I actually want? Not the convenience of casual dating. Not the hollow assertion of independence I'd performed by walking out on Marcus. Not the comforting predictability of my carefully controlled life. I wanted the paradoxical freedom I'd found in structured surrender, the intensity of being fully present in my body, my sensations, the strange liberation of temporarily setting down the burden of constant decision making. My phone chimed with a text message. I expected Paul, following up on our lukewarm evening. Instead, the door remains open, your choice. M7 words that acknowledged everything without demanding anything. I didn't respond immediately, needing to be certain my decision came from clarity rather than impulse. For 2 more days, I considered what returning would mean and what staying away would cost. On the morning of the 8th day, I texted back, "Tomorrow." 8 p.m. His reply came seconds later. "I'll be here. The 24 hours until our meeting stretched." Endlessly. I prepared carefully, selecting clothing that was both comfortable and composed: dark jeans, a simple blouse, low heels. My armor, but with concessions to the possibility of surrender. At precisely 8 p.m., I knocked on his door. He opened it immediately, as if he'd been waiting just on the other side. His expression revealed nothing beyond polite acknowledgement. "Elise." "Marcus." He stepped aside to let me enter. The apartment was exactly as I remembered, yet somehow I saw it differently, not as his territory, but as a neutral space we both entered voluntarily. "Would you like water, tea?" he offered, closing the door behind me. "Water, please." He moved to the kitchen, giving me a moment to settle myself. When he returned with 2 glasses, he gestured toward the living area, but didn't specify where I should sit. A small but significant change. I chose my usual armchair. He took the one opposite. "You're here," he stated simply. "I'm here. Why?" The directness was familiar, almost comforting after days of my own circular thinking. "Because I want to be," I answered with equal directness. "Because walking away didn't solve anything." He nodded once, accepting this. "And what do you want?" "Now, to continue." I met his gaze steadily. "But with some adjustments." "I'm listening." I prepared for this, organizing my thoughts during the days of separation. "I need more transparency about the purpose of each exercise, not just instructions, but context." Agreed. An acknowledgement that this isn't just ... clinical for me anymore. The admission was difficult but necessary. "These sessions are affecting me beyond what I anticipated." "They're affecting me as well," he said quietly. The admission surprised me. "You never show it." "Part of my role has been to maintain objectivity, to create safe space for your exploration." He leaned forward slightly. "But that doesn't mean I'm unaffected." The air between us shifted with this mutual acknowledgement. "What else?" he prompted. "I need agency in determining the pace and intensity." I took a breath. "Partnership rather than just submission." He considered this, then nodded. "The structure remains important, but yes, you should have voice in shaping it. Then we can continue. If that's what you want, it is." Something in his posture relaxed fractionally. "Then welcome back, Elise." The simple acknowledgement carried weight beyond its words: acceptance without judgment, continuation without penalty for my temporary retreat. "What now?" I asked. Now we reset. He stood, offering his hand, and began again with our new understanding. I placed my hand in his, the contact sending a current of awareness up my arm. As he helped me to my feet, the distance I tried to create collapsed into something more honest, the recognition that whatever was developing between us, it was by mutual choice, mutual vulnerability. "I'm ready," I said, meaning it in ways I hadn't before my rebellion and return. His eyes met mine, seeing and acknowledging the shift. "Then let's begin." When I arrived for our next session, I immediately sensed something different. The apartment was dimly lit, music playing softly, not the usual classical, but something with subtle electronic undertones. More notably, Marcus himself seemed altered, his customary precision somehow muted. "Come in," he said, his voice carrying an unfamiliar edge of fatigue. I studied him as I entered. The impeccable posture remained, but shadows lingered beneath. His eyes, tension visible in his jaw. "Is everything all right?" I asked, setting down my purse. "A difficult day." He moved to the kitchen, returning with water for both of us. "We should reschedule." "Why?" He paused, glass halfway to his lips, a nod in the proper mindset to guide tonight's session. "Then don't guide it." I held his gaze. "We agreed on partnership, remember?" Something flickered across his expression: uncertainty, perhaps, or surprise at having his own principle of honesty reflected back at him. "What happened today?" I pressed gently. He set down his glass, deliberate as always despite his apparent fatigue. "A former colleague died. Afghanistan. I'm sorry." We served together. His voice remained controlled, but emotion simmered beneath the surface. The news was unexpected. In our previous sessions, he had always maintained careful distance, physically present but emotionally reserved. Now, hairline fractures appeared in that composure, revealing glimpses of the man beneath the mentor. "Sit," I said, gesturing to the sofa. "Please." After a moment's hesitation, he complied. I joined him, maintaining respectful distance while still close enough to convey support. "Tell me about him," I suggested. Marcus looked momentarily startled by the invitation. Then his expression softened slightly. David Reiner, best tactical mind I ever encountered. Terrible poker player. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Saved my life in Kandahar. How? Spotted a wire I missed. Tackled me through a doorway seconds before the charge detonated. His hand moved unconsciously to his shoulder. Took shrapnel in my place. The admission revealed more than just the story it showed the weight of obligation he carried, the survivor's debt. After discharge, we kept in touch sporadically. He struggled with civilian life more than I did. His voice tightened. Found his purpose in private security work overseas. And today, IED on a convoy route. His clinical description couldn't mask the impact. He was 41. I remained silent, allowing him space to process. The moment stretched between us, heavy with unspoken grief. "I apologize," he said finally. "This isn't what you came for." "Maybe it's exactly what I came for." I moved slightly closer. "You've seen my vulnerabilities. Perhaps it's time I saw yours." He looked at me then, really looked not as mentor assessing student, but as one human connecting with another. "The control you admire in me," he said quietly, "began as survival, structure against chaos, discipline against fear, like my own control. Similar roots, different expressions." Without overthinking, I reached for his hand. He allowed the contact, his fingers cool against mine. "I don't know how to be the one receiving support," he admitted. "It's not a role I occupy often." "There's no protocol to follow," I said. "Just be present, as you've taught me to be." Something shifted in his posture, a subtle yielding, a small surrender of his own. We sat in companionable silence, hands connected, roles temporarily dissolved. Later, as I prepared to leave, he walked me to the door. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what? For seeing me?" "Not just my function." I nodded, understanding completely. "Same time next week?" "Yes." His composure had returned, but something had fundamentally changed between us. "We'll resume your exercises then." As the door closed behind me, I realized we'd experienced our most significant session, yet one where the power had flowed in both directions, creating balance rather than hierarchy. "Tonight will be challenging," Marcus said as I entered his apartment the following week. Perhaps our most difficult exercise yet. His composure had returned fully, though something had subtly shifted in our dynamic since his moment of vulnerability. A new equilibrium, less hierarchical but no less intense. "What's the purpose?" I asked, implementing our new agreement for transparency. "Complete trust, not just intellectual but instinctual." He gestured toward the center of the room, where a single chair waited. "Are you willing to continue?" I nodded, moving toward the chair. "Before we begin," he said, "I want to emphasize that you can use the safe word at any point. There's no failure in recognizing your boundaries." "Avalanche," I confirmed. "I remember." "Good." He moved behind me as I sat. "I'm going to blindfold you, then secure your wrists to the chair arms." My pulse quickened. "With what?" "Silk cords. Comfortable, but effective. They'll release immediately if you say the safe word twice." The prospect was both alarming and strangely compelling. "What's the exercise once I'm secured? Surrender to uncertainty?" "I'll explain more once you're prepared." He paused. "Your consent?" I took a deep breath. "Yes." The blindfold came first, the now familiar silk that plunged me into darkness. Then the sensation of soft cords around my wrists, snug but not painful, securing me to the chair arms. "Can you move your hands?" Marcus asked. I tested the restraints, only slightly. "Good. Are you comfortable?" Yes, despite the restriction, I felt oddly calm. The human mind craves certainty. His voice came from directly in front of me. It creates anxiety when we can't predict what comes next. Tonight's exercise involves surrendering to that uncertainty. I heard him move away, then return. I'm going to introduce various sensations. Some pleasant, some neutral, some mildly uncomfortable. You won't know what's coming or when. What's the point? To experience each sensation purely, without anticipation or resistance. To be fully present in each moment, especially when you can't control it. The challenge was clear, not just physical surrender through restraint, but mental surrender through unpredictability. Begin when you're ready, I said. Silence followed, stretching my awareness taut with anticipation. Then, unexpectedly, something cool and smooth traced along my forearm, a sensation so light it might have been imagined. What do you feel? Marcus asked. Cool, smooth, like metal or stone. Good. Stay present with it. The object, perhaps a piece of marble, continued its path along my skin, then disappeared. Seconds or minutes passed before the next sensation arrived, something soft brushing against my cheek. A feather, perhaps. Each new stimulus arrived without pattern or warning, drops of water falling onto my palm. The subtle warmth of what might have been a candle held near, but never touching my skin. A tuft of something ticklish against my neck, between. Each sensation came periods of nothing, just darkness and anticipation. What are you experiencing internally? Marcus asked during one such interval. Tension, anticipation, curiosity. Are you trying to predict what comes next? Yes, I admitted. That's the natural response. Try to release that need for prediction. Accept each sensation as it arrives, without expectation. I made a conscious effort to relax, to empty my mind. Of anticipation, the exercise continued. A cube of ice pressed briefly against my wrist. The scent of citrus wafted near my face. Something heavy and warm draped across my shoulders, a heated blanket dot with each unpredictable stimulus. I practiced immediate acceptance rather than analysis or prediction. Gradually, I slipped into an almost meditative state, present, aware, but without the usual mental chatter of control. Final stage, Marcus said, his voice closer now. Complete surrender to uncertainty. Silence fell again, stretching longer than before. I waited, breath shallow, for the next sensation. Instead, I felt his hands at my wrists, releasing the restraints. Stand, he instructed, helping me to my feet while leaving the blindfold in place. What now? I asked. Trust, he said simply, taking my hands. Step forward when I pull gently. Stop when I squeeze once. Turn when I tap your shoulder. Through these subtle signals, he guided me across the room, my steps hesitant but increasingly confident in his direction. Last step, he said finally. I'm going to remove the blindfold, but I want you to keep your eyes closed until I say to open them. The silk slipped away. I kept my eyes obediently shut. Open, he said. I blinked, finding myself standing at the edge of his balcony, glass doors open to the night air, 32 stories above the city. You guided me outside? I asked, momentarily breathless at the realization. Yes, his voice came from directly behind me. Complete trust, Elise. You've achieved it. In that moment, I understood the true purpose of the exercise, not just surrender to sensation, but faith in another's guidance, even to the edge of perceived danger. Our next session began differently. Instead of instructions, Marcus handed me a sealed envelope when I arrived. Tonight's exercise involves your choice, he explained. Inside are 3 options. Select one before opening the envelope. I weighed the envelope in my hand. What are the options based on? Increasing intensity. One is moderate challenge, one significant, one profound. His expression remained neutral. Choose based on your own readiness, not what you think I expect. I considered carefully. Our previous session had pushed boundaries I hadn't known I had. Part of me wanted to retreat to safer territory, while another part craved the intensity of further exploration. Option 2, I decided finally. Significant challenge. Marcus nodded. Open it. Inside was a card with a single paragraph, extended. Sensory isolation, 30 minutes, combined with physical stress position. Purpose, finding mental discipline when both mind and body are challenged. Safe word remains in effect. I looked up, meeting his gaze. What's the stress position? Kneeling, arms extended forward at shoulder height. Not painful initially, but increasingly demanding as time passes. My immediate instinct was apprehension, quickly followed by determination. I accept, he gestured, toward the center of the room, where a cushioned mat had been placed. Remove your shoes and kneel here. I complied, settling onto the mat. Arms forward, palms up, he instructed, kneeling momentarily to adjust my position. Spine straight, shoulders relaxed. The position wasn't uncomfortable initially, just unfamiliar. Marcus placed the blindfold over my eyes, then added noise canceling. Headphones, plunging me into sensory isolation. The first 5 minutes passed easily. I focused on my breathing, finding a rhythm that kept me centered. Without sight or sound, my awareness turned inward, cataloging sensations within my body, the pressure of the mat against my knees, the subtle work of muscles keeping my arms. Extended dot by 10 minutes, the first signs of discomfort appeared. My shoulders began to burn slightly, my thighs sending signals of protest. I shifted minutely, seeking relief without abandoning the position. 15 minutes brought genuine challenge. My arms felt increasingly heavy, muscles trembling with the effort of maintaining their extension. Without external stimuli, each sensation amplified, the burning in my shoulders, the strain in my lower back, the pressure points where my knees met the mat. I lost track of time, existing in a bubble of increasing discomfort. My mind began generating urgent messages: lower your arms, shift position. This is too much. I struggled to maintain focus as the physical demands intensified. My breathing became shallow, my thoughts fragmented by growing distress signals from my body. 20 minutes, or what I estimated to be 20 minutes, brought me to a critical juncture. The discomfort had transformed into genuine pain, my muscles now shaking visibly with the effort of maintaining position. Just a bit longer, I told myself. You can endure this, but as the minutes stretched on, something shifted internally. This wasn't about endurance anymore. The exercise had revealed an important boundary, one between challenging growth and pointless suffering. Avalanche, I said, my voice sounding strange in the silence of the headphones. Immediately, the headphones were removed, followed by the blindfold. Marcus knelt beside me, his expression concerned but not disappointed. Lower your arms, he said gently, slowly. The relief was immediate and intense. I brought my arms down gradually, wincing as blood flow returned to cramped muscles. How long? I asked, my voice slightly hoarse. 26 minutes, nearly the full 30. So close to completion, yet I'd stopped. I'm sorry, I said automatically. No. Marcus's voice was firm. Never apologize for using the safe word. That's exactly what it's for, recognizing your limits. He helped me shift to a more comfortable seated position, handing me water. What happened internally? He asked after I'd taken several sips. I reached a point where the pain stopped serving any purpose, I explained. It wasn't about surrender anymore. It was just ... suffering. He nodded, something like approval in his expression. That's precisely the lesson. I looked at him, confused. The lesson was to fail. The lesson was to recognize the difference between productive surrender and needless endurance. He sat beside me on the mat. Many people would have pushed through just to finish, missing the actual point of the exercise, which was agency within surrender. The wisdom to know when to yield and when to hold your boundary. His expression softened slightly. Using the safe word wasn't failure, Elise. It was the most important demonstration of growth you've shown. Yet, the perspective shift was profound. All this time, I'd viewed our exercises through the lens of success or failure, enduring or yielding. I'd never considered that sometimes the surrender that mattered most was to my own authentic limits. Rest now, Marcus said, helping me to my feet. We're finished for tonight. As I gathered my things to leave, still processing the unexpected lesson, he added, I'm proud of you. 3 simple words that somehow carried more weight than any previous praise. I left his apartment with aching muscles but newfound clarity, understanding that true strength lay not in endless endurance, but in knowing exactly where my boundaries belonged. "Let's talk before beginning tonight's exercise," Marcus said as I entered his apartment for our next session. He gestured toward the balcony, where 2 chairs have been placed side by side rather than facing each other, a subtle but significant change. The evening air was cool but pleasant as we settled into the chairs, the city spread below us in a tapestry of lights. "After last session, I've been reconsidering our approach," he said, his tone conversational rather than instructional. "I believe we've reached a transition point." "What kind of transition?" "From structured exercises to something more organic." He turned slightly to face me. "You've demonstrated remarkable growth, Elise. The fundamental lessons have been internalized." "You think we're finished?" The possibility created an unexpected, hollow sensation in my chest. "Not finished. Evolving." His eyes held mine. The training wheels can come off, so to speak. I considered this, watching lights blink on distant towers. "What does that look like in practice?" "More equal exchange, less rigid structure." He paused. "Mutual vulnerability rather than guided surrender." The proposition sent a current of both anticipation and apprehension through me. "That sounds like a relationship, not an arrangement." "Perhaps it is." His directness was characteristic, but somehow different in this context. "Unless that's not what you want." The question hung between us, weighted with possibilities. What had begun as structured power exchange had gradually transformed into something more complex, more personal. "I'm not sure what I want," I admitted. "This started as something compartmentalized, separate from my regular life, and now the boundaries are blurring." He nodded, unsurprised. "That's natural. Authentic connection rarely stays in neat categories." "Is that what we have?" "Authentic connection? I believe so." His gaze remained steady. "Don't you?" The question demanded honesty I wasn't sure I was ready to give. Yet after all our exercises in surrender and trust, evasion felt impossible. "Yes," I said finally, "but it frightens me." "Why?" "Because it's not controlled. Not defined with clear parameters and endpoints." A slight smile touched his lips. "Precisely. What makes it valuable?" We sat in silence for several moments, the city humming below us. "What happens now?" I asked eventually. "That's for us to determine together." He turned fully toward me. "What do you want our connection to be, Elise?" "No structure imposed, just your honest desire." I looked at him, really seeing not just the mentor who had guided me through carefully designed surrenders, but the man who had revealed his own vulnerabilities, who had seen me at my most exposed and responded with respect rather than exploitation. "I want to know you," I said simply. "Beyond the exercises and arrangements, the real Marcus." Something in his expression opened, a guardedness falling away that I hadn't fully recognized until its absence. "I want that too." He reached for my hand, the contact different, now not instructional or demonstrative, but connecting. "Which means no more formal sessions, just ... he gestured between us. "This, whatever it becomes." "That's terrifying," I said with a small laugh. "Yes." His fingers tightened slightly around mine. "Genuine vulnerability usually is. So we just date like normal people?" "I don't think either of us does normal particularly well." His expression was warm now, more open than I'd ever seen it. "But yes, we explore this connection without the structure of mentor and student." As the implication settled, I realized that this transition, this leap into undefined territory, represented the ultimate surrender, not to his guidance, but to mutual discovery, to possibility without guarantees. "I'm willing if you are," I said, turning my hand to properly hold his. "I am." 2 simple words that somehow contained multitudes. We remained on the balcony long after our conversation ended, hands connected, watching the city below, 2 people stepping together into uncharted territory, finding strange comfort and mutual uncertainty. 3 months after our first session, I stood once again at Marcus's door. This visit felt different, not another exercise or even a casual date, but something with weight. Something final. He opened the door before I could knock, as if he'd sensed my presence. Elise, Marcus. We'd seen each other regularly in the weeks, since our balcony conversation dinners at restaurants, walks through the city, even ordinary activities like grocery shopping together. Normal couple things, though, we were anything but a normal couple. Tonight, however, we both recognized a threshold approaching, the natural conclusion to the journey we'd begun that first evening when I crossed his threshold, nervous but determined. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. The apartment was softly lit, familiar now after so many visits. I moved to the living area, noticing subtle changes since my first time here. A throw pillow I'd selected on the sofa, a plant I'd given him thriving. On the windowsill, small infiltrations of my presence in his once pristine space. "Wine?" he offered. "Please." He poured 2 glasses of red, handing me one before settling beside me on the sofa, not too close, not too distant. Respectful of the unspoken gravity of this evening. "You've been quiet today," he observed. I nodded, gathering my thoughts. "I've been reflecting on everything since that first night." "As have I." We sipped our wine in companionable silence, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows. "Do you remember what you said then?" I asked finally. "That our arrangement would be temporary, educational." "I remember. I think we've reached that point." The words were difficult to say, but necessary. The end point we always knew would come. He studied me carefully, his expression open but unreadable. "You believe our connection has served its purpose?" "Not our connection," I clarified. "This specific dynamic. The teacher and student, the guide and explorer." I set my glass down. "I've learned what I came to learn," which was how to surrender without losing myself, how to be vulnerable without being weak. I met his gaze directly. How to trust another person with my boundaries and trust myself to maintain them. Something like pride flickered in his expression. "You've learned well. I had an excellent teacher." His smile was gentle. "So what comes next, Elise?" The question hung between us, weighted with possibility. We'd grown close over these months, developed genuine care and respect. But we'd always operated within the framework of our original purpose, even as it evolved. Now we face the prospect of something entirely new, or perhaps an ending. "I think," I said carefully, "that we need to close this chapter properly. Honor what it was before deciding what might follow." He nodded, understanding immediately. "One final session?" "Full circle, yes." He set his own glass down, turning to face me fully. "What would bring proper closure for you?" I'd thought about this carefully, wanting the ending to honor the journey. A reversal. This time, I guide. You surrender. Surprise flickered briefly across his features, followed by consideration. "Not in the same way," I added. "Not with exercises or tests. Just ... emotional surrender. Complete honesty." He was quiet for a moment, then nodded once. "I accept." We moved to the familiar arrangement armchairs facing each other, though this time I took his usual seat, he mine. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," I began. He held my gaze steadily. "I've never felt as seen as I do when I'm with you." The simple honesty caught me off guard, more powerful than any elaborate confession could have been. "Your turn," he said quietly. "I was afraid of you at first, not physically. I was afraid of how quickly you saw through my defenses. And now?" "Now. I'm grateful for it." We continued this exchange, truth for truth, vulnerability for vulnerability, creating a final, beautiful symmetry to our journey. No power dynamics, no hierarchies. Just 2 people offering genuine connection. As our conversation drew to its natural close, I felt a sense of completion I hadn't expected, not the sharp pain of ending, but the satisfaction of a circle perfectly closed. "Thank you," I said simply, "for everything you've taught me." "Thank you," he replied, "for everything you've shown me." We both understood that something significant had concluded. Whatever might come next, continuation in a different form, or a gentle parting of ways, would be built on new ground, not an extension of what came before. 6 months later, I stood before the mirror in my office bathroom, studying my reflection. Same dark hair, same green eyes, same features, yet something fundamentally different gazed back at me. Not just confidence, though, that had certainly grown. Something deeper. Integration. My phone buzzed with a calendar notification. Presentation. To the board in 15 minutes. Once, such moments had filled me with carefully concealed anxiety, the need to perform flawlessly, to maintain perfect control. Now I felt calm anticipation, aware of the stakes but unafraid of imperfection. Elise, my assistant, appeared in the doorway. "They're ready for you early." "Thank you, Jane. I'll be right there." I gathered my materials, straightened my jacket, and walked to the boardroom with measured steps. As I presented our quarterly strategy, I noticed my communication had changed, more present, more responsive to the room, less armored. "Excellent work," the CEO commented afterward. "The promotion. Committee made the right choice." 2 weeks ago, I'd been named senior director, a position I'd coveted for years. The achievement felt satisfying, but no longer defining. Success had become part of my life, not its purpose. Later that afternoon, I headed to Elite Fitness for my regular workout. The gym had become simply a gym again. No charged territory, no complex dynamics. Just a place to maintain physical discipline, to honor my body's strength and limitations. As I finished my session, my phone lit up with a text message. "Dinner tonight?" Ma smile touched my lips as I typed back, "Yes, your place or mine?" "Yours." "I'll bring the ingredients, 7 p.m. Perfect. Marcus and I had continued seeing each other after our final formal session. Though the relationship had evolved in ways neither of us had predicted, the intensity remained, but transformed no longer. About power exchange, but mutual growth. We maintained separate apartments, separate lives, coming together by choice rather than arrangement. Sometimes I still glimpsed the dominant mentor in his actions, a certain look, a tone of voice that sent electricity through me. But now such moments arose organically, part of our natural dynamic rather than structured exercises. At home that evening, I heard his familiar knock precisely at 7 p.m. Some habits remained unchanged. "Hi," I said, opening the door. "Hi." He leaned in for a brief kiss, then held up a grocery bag. As promised, we moved to the kitchen together, falling into easy synchronization as we prepared dinner. No instructions needed, no designated roles, just two people who had learned each other's rhythms. "How was your presentation?" he asked as he chopped vegetables. "Good. Better than good, actually." I smiled, seasoning the fish. I was present in a way I couldn't have been before. He nodded, understanding the significance. "And how did that feel?" "Freeing." I paused, considering. I used to think freedom meant complete independence. No vulnerability, no need for others. And now? Now I understand that real freedom includes the choice to connect, to be seen, to sometimes yield control. His smile was warm, appreciative. "You've come far. We both have." Later, as we sat on my balcony with glasses of wine, the city lights reminded me of that pivotal night on his balcony when our formal arrangement had evolved into something more authentic. "Do you remember our first session?" I asked when I walked into your apartment, so determined to maintain control even while seeking to surrender it. Vividly, his eyes held mine. "You were a fascinating contradiction. I still am sometimes." "That's what makes you interesting." We fell into comfortable silence, shoulder to shoulder in the evening air. "I never expected this outcome," I admitted. "When I first came to your door, what did you expect?" "A temporary experience, a controlled experiment in surrender." I turned to face him, not transformation. The best journeys often lead to unexpected destinations. As the evening drew to a close, I walked him to the door. Our goodbye kiss lingered, carrying the promise of continued discovery. Alone again, I moved through my apartment, once a fortress of solitude, now a space that comfortably accommodated both independence and connection. My phone chimed with another text message. "Thank you for tonight. Sleep well." And simple words that once would have seemed insufficient, but now carried layers of understanding between us. I replied with equal simplicity, "You too." "See you soon." Setting down my phone, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror, a woman who had walked into a stranger's apartment fully clothed yet somehow naked in her defenses, and emerged clothed in newfound self-knowledge, wrapped in the understanding that true strength includes knowing when to surrender, when to hold firm, and the wisdom to recognize the difference.